Welcome to an epic journey where destiny, courage, and unity collide. In this thrilling sci-fi adventure, follow Lucas, an ordinary human, who is thrust into a war between worlds when he unexpectedly becomes the chosen heir to the celestial spear. Joined by Selena, a fierce alien warrior, Lucas must unlock the spear's true power and fight an ancient darkness threatening to destroy everything. Will their bond be enough to save both their worlds? Join us as we dive into this heart-pounding tale of prophecy, sacrifice, and the fight for survival. Let's begin the adventure. Lucas Drake was about to take a bite of his burrito when the world ripped itself apart. One moment he was standing in his kitchen, the satisfying warmth of his lunch filling the air, and the next, everything shifted. The floor beneath him vanished. The walls around him crumbled away like sand in the wind, and he felt himself falling through a void, as if the universe itself had yanked him into its grasp. His heart raced. Was this a dream? Some kind of twisted hallucination? The last thing he remembered was debating whether to add extra meat. Now, he was standing in the middle of an ancient temple, the air thick with the scent of stone and mystery, and the faint hum of something otherworldly. Before he could even catch his breath, his gaze fell upon her. A woman, no, a warrior, stood before a massive stone monolith, her violet skin glowing under the shifting, crystalline light. She pulled at a spear, its shaft pulsing with energy, but it was lodged deep within the stone, refusing to yield. Her face twisted in fierce concentration, golden eyes flashing with frustration. Who dares disrupt the sacred ascension of the Virellians? Her voice was like thunder, echoing in the cavernous space, commanding the air itself to bow to her will. Lucas' mind scrambled for words. He looked around, trying to make sense of his surroundings. There were no answers, no explanation, just the overwhelming, oppressive weight of ancient history pressing in on him. I just wanted lunch? Lucas stammered, his hands raised in surrender. But it was too late. He wasn't just in the wrong place. He was exactly where he needed to be. The prophecy had already been set in motion, and the world around him was waiting for him to pull the spear free, whether he was ready or not. The chamber echoed with silence after Lucas spoke. A strange stillness hung in the air, thick with tension. The woman, her eyes still burning with golden intensity, stepped closer, her armored boots clicking against the stone floor with each determined step. The guards surrounding them, armed with spears and shields, watched closely, their eyes never leaving Lucas. "You have desecrated our sacred ceremony," she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Do you understand the gravity of your transgression?" Lucas opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, the stone beneath his feet trembled. He glanced down, startled. The ground pulsed with energy, and the spear in the woman's hand, still embedded in the stone, began to glow with an ethereal light. The woman, who had initially appeared so confident, froze, her expression shifting from frustration to disbelief. What is happening?" she muttered, her fingers tightening around the shaft of the spear as if she could will it free by sheer force of will. "Hey, I'm just here for lunch," Lucas said again, his voice tinged with nervous humor. "I didn't mean to interrupt your, ceremony." "You have no place here, human," one of the guards spoke up, his voice low and threatening. His violet skin glowed faintly in the temple's light. "This is sacred ground. You are an outsider and you will be treated as such." The woman, now glaring at him with narrowed eyes, finally spoke again, but this time her tone was colder, more authoritative. "I am Selena Virell, first warrior of the Virellian people, and this," she gestured to the stone, her voice sharp and commanding, "is the celestial spear of Virell. Only the chosen one can free it, and you." She stopped herself, her eyes widening as she took in the sight of Lucas, who stood still, unsure whether he should be terrified or amused by the situation. "Are you the one?" Selena whispered, her golden eyes searching his face for some sign of recognition. I don't know," Lucas answered, his brows furrowing in confusion. "Is this like a bad time for a burrito?" Selena's glare intensified, and the guards tightened their grips on their spears, but she held up her hand, silencing them. The pulse of energy from the stone was undeniable now. The spear's glow grew brighter with each passing second, a crackling hum filling the air. "Impossible," Selena muttered. She stepped back, releasing her grip on the spear. "No human can, no one outside of the prophecy could ever." "Okay, This is weird, Lucas said, his voice growing more panicked. Look, I'm just some guy from Seattle. I swear, I wasn't trying to ruin any ceremonies. This is all way too much for me to handle. Explain yourself. A deep, gravelly voice cut through the tension. Lucas turned to see an elderly figure, his violet skin aged and wrinkled, stepping forward from the shadows. His eyes shone with wisdom far beyond the typical Virelian. This is Master Eldrin, Selena said, her voice strained. He is one of the elders of our people. Master Eldrin, I swear Lucas began, but the elder raised his hand, halting him. The celestial spear of Virel recognizes you, Master Eldrin declared in a tone that demanded attention. It is the will of the sacred prophecy. Only the true heir can free it. And the true heir is you, Lucas Drake. Wait, what? Lucas's heart skipped a beat. I'm not the heir. I just wanted to eat lunch. And what the heck is a prophecy? Selena's eyes were wide, disbelief warring with a flicker of hope. The prophecy foretold of a human, one from beyond the stars, who would come to free the spear and unite the worlds. You. Wait a minute. You're saying I'm... what? Some kind of hero? Lucas interrupted, gesturing to the glowing spear in his hands. I'm just a software guy. I can barely keep up with deadlines, let alone ancient prophecies. Do not mock what you do not understand, human, a guard snapped, his weapon trembling in his hands. The prophecy is clear. The one who frees the spear is destined to lead our people. The air grew heavy with tension, and Lucas, in his confusion, shifted his stance nervously. The energy from the spear hummed louder, wrapping around him like a cloak, but it felt strangely warm, almost alive. Selena's eyes softened as she watched the way the spear reacted to him. This is insane, Lucas muttered, staring at the shaft of the spear. It was like holding a live wire, its energy pulsing through him, urging him to move. Without thinking, he reached out, his hand gripping the spear tightly. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. Time slowed as the spear's glow intensified, and with a sudden surge, the weapon slid free of the stone as easily as if it had never been stuck at all. The sound of the stone grinding against the spear echoed through the temple, and Lucas felt a strange surge of power course through him, like the spear was now part of him. No way! Lucas whispered in awe. He turned the spear in his hands, examining it closely. This is impossible. Selena, her jaw hanging open in disbelief, finally managed to speak. The prophecy, it's true, she breathed, her voice trembling. You are the one, Lucas Drake. The temple was filled with stunned silence. Now what? Lucas asked, looking between Selena and the elder, trying to make sense of the overwhelming situation. The prophecy is clear, Master Eldrin said, his voice steady, yet laden with the weight of centuries. You, Lucas Drake, are the heir to the celestial spear. You will unite the worlds, lead our people, and together you will fight the coming darkness. Wait, so now I have to lead your people? I just wanted a burrito, Lucas exclaimed, throwing his hands up in exasperation. Selena's gaze softened slightly, her earlier anger replaced by a flicker of understanding. You are no longer just a man from Earth, Lucas. You are now part of a greater destiny. Okay, so I get that I'm some kind of hero, but what does that even mean? Lucas said, his voice filled with growing disbelief. I don't know anything about leading an army, fighting wars, or whatever this prophecy is about. Selena's eyes met his, and for the first time there was a hint of sympathy in them. You'll learn, she said quietly, her voice steady. But first, there's something we need to discuss. Yeah, Lucas muttered, glancing at the group of Virelian guards. Like how I'm supposed to marry you, right? Her gaze hardened, and her voice became a low growl. Do not joke about that, human. This is not a choice. Master Eldrin's voice cut through the tension. The prophecy is clear. Only through your union can the true power of the spear be unlocked. It is not just a weapon, it is a symbol of unity, one that binds worlds together. Wait, marriage? Lucas asked, raising his eyebrows. I don't even know you. Selena's eyes narrowed. You'll have no choice. The prophecy must be fulfilled. And what happens if I say no? Lucas asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. Death, Master Eldrin replied simply, his tone cold and final. Lucas couldn't believe what he was hearing. A prophecy? Marriage? Power? He had gone from debating burrito toppings to being thrust into an ancient galactic struggle with one short, bewildering teleportation. The absurdity of the whole situation hung in the air like a bad dream he couldn't wake up from. Selena was still glaring at him, her golden eyes narrowed. This is the law, human. You are the heir, and you will follow through with the prophecy. If not, we will all perish. Our worlds are bound by fate. I don't even know how to lead, Lucas protested, waving the spear in his hands like it might just explode. I'm not some ancient warrior. I'm a software developer, okay? I debug code, not fight aliens. You will learn or we will die, Selena snapped, her tone hard as steel. She turned to the other guards. Get him ready. A sharp gasp escaped Lucas's lips. Wait. Ready for what? I didn't sign up for. Before he could finish, a loud crash echoed through the temple's towering doors. The sound of boots hitting stone and the hiss of energy weapons sent a ripple of tension through the air. Lucas's grip on the spear tightened as he instinctively stepped back. His eyes darted around, trying to find an escape, but the room was closing in on him. They're here, Selena said grimly. The Shadow Army. A group of armed warriors dressed in dark, combat-ready armor stormed through the entrance. Their faces were masked, but their intentions were clear. They were there to kill. As the rebels advanced, their leader, a menacing figure cloaked in black, stepped forward, his voice booming in the vast chamber. Death to the false heir, he shouted, raising his weapon high. Lucas felt his stomach drop. His first instinct was to run, to find a way out of this nightmare. But as the rebel soldiers raised their weapons, aiming directly at him, the weight of the spear in his hand seemed to press into his very soul. Get behind me, Selena said sharply, pushing Lucas toward the back of the room. Stay low, stay out of sight. No way, Lucas muttered, shaking his head. I can't just hide while you... The ground suddenly shook as an explosion rocked the temple, sending dust and debris flying. The rebels advanced faster, their weapons humming ominously. Selena's hand shot out, grabbing Lucas by the arm. Do you want to die here, human? Stay with me and trust the spear. You'll need it. Trust the spear? Lucas repeated, looking at the glowing weapon in his hand. I don't know how to use this thing. I'm a fish out of water here. You will learn fast, she said, her voice filled with urgency. Now, fight! Before he could protest further, Selena dashed forward with the swiftness of a predator. She slammed into the nearest rebel with a perfectly executed strike, knocking him to the ground with a fluid motion that sent shockwaves through the room. Lucas stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. But then, a sudden pulse of energy shot through the spear, vibrating in his hands like a live wire. Instinct took over. Without thinking, Lucas lifted the spear, and to his surprise, the weapon guided him. It moved as though it were an extension of his own body, responding to his thoughts and intentions. He swung it in an arc, and the spear's energy discharged with a burst of bright, crackling light. The rebel closest to him was knocked back, his weapon flying out of his hands, thrown by the sheer force of the blast. Whoa, Lucas shouted, his voice a mix of shock and awe. He stumbled back, trying to process what just happened. The spear felt right in his hands, almost alive. Good, Selena's voice called from across the room where she was expertly dispatching more rebels with a terrifying grace. Now keep moving. Don't let them get close. Lucas looked around, panicked. The rebels were still closing in, but there was something different now, a strange sense of connection between him and the spear. The hum of energy reverberated through his body, synchronizing with his heartbeat. He lifted the spear again, its energy surging in response. As the next group of rebels advanced, Lucas moved without thinking. He swung the spear in a wide arc, and this time the energy surged outward like a shockwave, sending the rebels tumbling backward. The spear was powerful, too powerful, but Lucas wasn't sure how long he could keep this up. He was still a beginner, still stumbling through his movements like an amateur, but the spear, its power, felt like it was becoming a part of him, like it was teaching him, guiding him. Selena dashed past him, her movements flawless. Good, you're learning, keep up. I'm trying, Lucas called out, dodging a rebel strike and blocking it with the spear's shaft. The shock of the impact made his arms numb, but the weapon held strong, as if it had its own will. For a moment, it felt like they were in sync, working together, one human, one warrior, and one mystical weapon. But just as Lucas thought he might be getting the hang of it, a powerful explosion rang out, knocking both him and Selena to the ground. They scrambled to their feet, dust and debris swirling in the air. The rebel leader, Commander Zorik, stood at the front of the room, his eyes filled with rage. His weapon, a dark, pulsing energy blade, was aimed directly at them. "You will not live to see the day when the prophecy is fulfilled, human," Zorik snarled, his eyes locked on Lucas. "The celestial spear belongs to us. You are nothing." Selena's voice rang out, filled with authority. "Back off, Zorik. This is not your fight. The celestial spear has chosen its heir." The rebel commander's lips curled into a smirk. "The heir? The only heir here is the one who controls the power of the Virelians, and that is not you." "Then come and take it," Selena shouted, charging at Zorik with a fierce battle cry. Lucas stood frozen for a moment, watching the two leaders clash. His mind raced. He had never fought like this before. But then something clicked. His grip tightened on the spear, and he felt the weapon's energy coursing through him, urging him to act. With a deep breath, Lucas leaped forward, raising the spear high. A bolt of energy shot out from the weapon, striking Zorik's energy blade and disarming him in one swift motion. The rebel commander stumbled back, momentarily stunned. "Impossible!" Zorik shouted, eyes wide with disbelief. Lucas didn't hesitate. He swung the spear again, this time more confidently, sending a surge of energy into the ground beneath Zorik, trapping him in a ring of pulsating blue light. "This is just the beginning," Lucas said, breathing heavily, his heart racing in his chest. "I don't know what's going on, but I'm not backing down." The dust from the battle was still thick in the air, settling over the ruins of the temple. The rebels had been defeated for now, but Lucas could still hear the heavy echo of their footsteps in his mind. His heart pounded in his chest, and his hands shook as he gripped the celestial spear. The power coursing through him felt strange, almost unnatural. He had never imagined his life could change so completely in a single moment, and now he was expected to marry a warrior princess and save two worlds. Selena approached him, her violet armor scratched but otherwise unharmed. Her golden eyes met his, but there was no trace of the earlier anger. Instead, there was a quiet intensity, an unspoken understanding between them. "You did well," she said, her voice steady despite the battle that had just taken place. "You've shown you can handle the spear, but this is only the beginning. The real test is yet to come." Lucas blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "I just took down a bunch of rebels with it. I think I'm doing all right." "Defeating rebels is easy," Selena said with a small, grim smile. "The spear's true power comes from something else. You will learn to wield it as a weapon, yes, but it is also a symbol of unity, and that unity will require more than just combat skills." Lucas looked at the spear in his hand, its glow now dimming, as if the weapon itself was waiting for something. He felt a deep, almost unsettling connection to it, but it was also more than that. It was as if the spear was watching him, waiting for him to understand its true purpose. "I'm starting to get that, but—" Lucas hesitated. "You keep talking about unity. What does that even mean?" "Come," Selena said, her voice firm, yet softer than before. "There is a ritual you must undergo to unlock the full power of the celestial spear. The prophecy is not simply about battle, it is about the union of two worlds, my world and yours." "Wait, you mean marriage?" Lucas asked, his voice laced with incredulity. "You're really going through with that?" Selena turned toward him, her face expressionless, but her eyes betrayed something deeper, a silent vulnerability that Lucas hadn't seen before. "The law of the Virelian people demands it. Only through our union will the full power of the spear be unlocked. Only then can we fight the coming darkness. The spear chooses its bearer, and the bearer must unite the worlds to fulfill the prophecy." Lucas swallowed hard, the weight of the situation bearing down on him. He wasn't prepared for any of this. He was a man who had lived a quiet, predictable life, and now he was being told that his future depended on marrying someone he barely knew and leading people who weren't even from his world. But despite all the chaos, he couldn't deny the strange connection he felt with Selena and with the spear. Something about all of this felt inevitable, like he had been walking this path all his life without even knowing it. "All right," he said finally, his voice steadying. "So, what do we need to do?" Selena's lips curved into a small, reluctant smile. "We must perform the ritual of binding. It is ancient, and it will bind us together, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Only then will the spear recognize us as its true bearers." Lucas raised an eyebrow. And how exactly do we do this? Selena stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. The ritual requires three things: blood, breath, and battle. Blood? Lucas echoed, his face pale. I'm not exactly comfortable with that part, but all right. The blood is symbolic, Selena clarified, her gaze unwavering. We each must give a small cut, and then we will press our palms together. The exchange of blood seals our bond. Lucas was about to protest, but Selena's eyes met his, and there was something there, something that made him hesitate. He didn't fully understand it, but he knew he had to trust her. He didn't have a choice. The fate of two worlds rested on this ritual. He nodded slowly, swallowing his unease. And the breath? He asked. Selena took a deep breath, her golden eyes locking onto his. We must share one breath. Literally, you will breathe in my breath, and I will breathe in yours. Our life forces will intertwine, and the spear's power will flow through us both. That's intense, Lucas muttered, his throat dry. But I guess I've had worse days. The last part of the ritual, she explained, was the battle. Once we've completed the bond through blood and breath, we must fight side by side. The spear's power will manifest through us, amplifying our strength. But our unity must be forged in battle. Only then will it be complete. Lucas took a long breath. All right, I'm in. Let's do this. Selena nodded, her voice quiet. Then we begin. She stepped back, drawing a small ceremonial dagger from her side. She held it up, its blade glinting in the light. Without a word, she sliced the palm of her hand with swift precision, blood welling up instantly. She held her hand out to him. Lucas hesitated, but only for a moment. He raised his own hand, slicing it with the same dagger, feeling a sharp sting as the blood flowed freely. His hand trembled slightly as he pressed it against hers, the warmth of her skin seeping into him. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. The air grew still, the world holding its breath as their blood mixed. The spear pulsed in his grip, glowing brighter with every passing second. Blood freely given, Selena intoned softly. Blood freely shared. Next, she moved closer, and before Lucas could react, she pressed her forehead to his. Her breath came in slow, measured inhalations, and as she breathed out, Lucas inhaled deeply, feeling the rush of her breath fill his lungs. The world seemed to shift around them, a warm energy filling the space between their bodies. The connection between them deepened, and for a moment it felt like they were one being, bound together by something far older than either of them. Breath freely shared, Selena whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Lucas, heart racing, looked into her eyes. There was no turning back now. Their bond was sealed. But before he could process the magnitude of what had just happened, the ground beneath them shook again. A deep rumble echoed through the temple, and Lucas felt the spear's power surge inside him. The final part of the ritual was about to begin. The ground shook beneath their feet, and Lucas felt a surge of energy rush through him. The spear in his hand pulsed violently, almost as if it had come alive. He could feel its power thrumming through every inch of his body, like a river of pure energy running beneath his skin. He stared at Selena, who was now standing before him, her face a mixture of concentration and urgency. The connection between them was undeniable, their bond stronger than ever. This is it, Selena said, her voice quiet but intense. The ritual is complete, but the true test is about to begin. The spear has chosen us, Lucas. Together, we'll unlock its power. Lucas took a deep breath, still trying to wrap his mind around what was happening. I don't know what's going on anymore, Selena. This is bigger than anything I ever imagined. You're not just some guy from Earth anymore, Selena said, her golden eyes locking onto his. You're the heir. You have the power of the celestial spear now, but you need to accept it, to wield it. The temple trembled once more, and this time the sound of distant footsteps echoed through the halls. It wasn't just the ground shaking, the very air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. It was as if the temple itself was holding its breath. You feel that? Selena asked, her gaze narrowing. The energy's shifting. The power of the spear is reacting to us, our bond. Lucas nodded slowly, trying to steady his breathing. His palms were slick with sweat as he gripped the spear tighter. I can feel it, he admitted. Like it's guiding me, pulling me in the right direction. Good, Selena said, her voice firm. But it's not enough to just feel it. We need to focus. We need to fight together now. The coming darkness won't wait for us to figure this out. We need to stand united. As if on cue, the doors to the celestial sanctum burst open and a new wave of rebels poured into the chamber. They were led by Commander Zorik, whose face was twisted with hatred. His weapon, a massive energy blade, crackled with dangerous energy and his eyes never left Lucas. "You think you've won?" Zorik's voice boomed, echoing through the hall. "The prophecy is a lie. The spear doesn't belong to you, human. It belongs to the true rulers of this world." Lucas took a step forward, Selena right beside him. "We don't have time for your delusions, Zorik," Lucas said, his voice cutting through the tension. "This is bigger than your petty rebellion. You don't even understand what you're dealing with," Zorik snarled, raising his weapon. "You're nothing but a pawn in a game you can't win." Selena's eyes flashed with fury. "This isn't your fight, Zorik. The prophecy isn't about power. It's about unity. You'll never understand that." Zorik's lip curled in disgust. "Unity? You speak of unity while you betray your people. You're nothing but a traitor, Selena. And that human beside you is nothing more than a pawn, a fool." "Enough," Lucas said, raising the spear. It hummed in response, glowing brighter as he held it aloft. "You can't stop this. You can't stop us." Zorik's sneer turned into a wicked grin. "We'll see about that." Without warning, Zorik lunged forward, his energy blade crackling with dark energy. Selena reacted in an instant, stepping forward to intercept him. Their blades clashed with a sharp, resounding crack, and sparks flew as they engaged in a deadly dance. Zorik was fast, but Selena was faster, her movements fluid and precise as she blocked his every strike. "Lucas, now!" Selena shouted, her voice urgent. "Use the spear!" Lucas's heart raced, his thoughts scattering for a moment. But then, the spear's energy surged through him again, filling him with clarity. He raised the weapon high, feeling its power coiling within him like a storm waiting to be unleashed. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. With a sharp movement, Lucas thrust the spear forward, and a burst of blue energy exploded from its tip. The force of the blast slammed into Zorik, sending him flying backward, his energy blade tumbling from his hands. He hit the ground with a grunt, disoriented but still alive. "No," Zorik growled, struggling to rise to his feet. "This isn't over. The darkness will rise again, and you will fall." "Not today, Zorik," Selena said, her voice filled with authority. "The prophecy will be fulfilled, whether you like it or not." Lucas stood beside her, his grip still firm on the spear. The energy was crackling around them, a force they had never fully understood, but one that was becoming their ally. It was as if the spear had chosen them not only to fight, but to lead, to unite two worlds that had long been divided. Zorik backed away slowly, his eyes still filled with hatred. "This isn't the end, human. You can't stop what's coming. The darkness will consume everything." "I'll be ready," Lucas said, his voice calm and determined. "We'll be ready." With one final hate-filled glare, Zorik turned and retreated, his rebels following him. The tension in the air began to subside, and the temple grew eerily silent. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of their breathing, heavy with exhaustion. Lucas turned to Selena, his heart still racing from the battle. "We did it," he said, a mix of disbelief and relief in his voice. "We did," Selena replied, her voice soft but strong. "But this is just the beginning. The darkness is still out there, and it will come for us. Together, we'll face it." Lucas nodded. He could feel the weight of the responsibility that had been placed on him, but in that moment he also felt something else, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging. The spear had chosen him, and he wasn't going to back down. "Together," he repeated, his voice steady. "Let's finish this." The battle was over. The rebels had retreated, defeated for now, but Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that this was only a small victory in a much larger, darker conflict. The weight of the prophecy hung heavy on his shoulders, pressing down on him with every step he took. They had won today, but the coming darkness was still out there, growing stronger. Selena stood beside him, her violet armor now scuffed and scratched from the battle, but her posture was still proud and resolute. She looked at him with a mixture of respect and something deeper, something Lucas couldn't quite place. "Are you all right?" Selena asked, her voice low, her eyes searching his face. There was a softness in her tone that he hadn't expected. She had been so fierce, so determined, but in this moment she was more human than he had ever seen her. I don't know, Lucas admitted, his gaze still fixed on the path the rebels had taken as they retreated. I never imagined I'd be in a situation like this. A few days ago, I was just worrying about bugs in my code, and now I'm wielding a magical spear, fighting for two worlds. It feels like a dream or a nightmare. Selena's gaze softened. She stepped closer, her presence comforting in a way Lucas couldn't explain. It's real, Lucas. This is your destiny, and now mine as well. The weight of her words settled in his chest, and for the first time since the battle had begun, he felt a sense of peace. Despite the madness of it all, there was something here, something important. It was more than just the prophecy. It was more than the spear or the coming darkness. It was this strange bond between him and Selena, their shared fight, their shared purpose. I don't know if I can live up to this, Selena, Lucas said quietly, his voice filled with uncertainty. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for any of this. She placed a hand on his shoulder, the touch gentle but firm. You don't have to do it alone, Lucas. You're not meant to bear the burden of this alone. We will face it together. Her words stirred something deep within him, and for a moment, he let himself believe it. He wasn't in this fight by chance. There was a reason the spear had chosen him, a reason he had crossed paths with Selena. They were meant to be here, standing together in the face of something much larger than themselves. Before he could respond, a voice broke through the silence. Selena, Master Eldrin's voice rang out, low and gravelly. He appeared from the shadows of the temple, his age-worn face solemn but kind. Lucas, the two turned to face him, and Eldrin's eyes lingered on the spear in Lucas's hands, a knowing look passing between them. Your bond is strong, Eldrin said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of wisdom. But there is more to the prophecy than either of you fully realize. The spear's true power will be unlocked only when both of you have truly embraced your connection, not just as warriors, but as partners, as leaders, as one. Lucas frowned, his confusion growing. What do you mean? I thought the spear was already bound to me. It is bound to you, yes, Eldrin said. But the bond between you and Selena must deepen through sacrifice, through trust. You must give more of yourselves to one another if you are to face the darkness together. Only then will the spear's power be at its fullest. Selena's gaze flickered to Lucas, and for a brief moment, he saw the uncertainty in her eyes too. They had fought side by side, but there was still something unspoken between them. Something that went beyond their bond as warriors. The prophecy had brought them together, but it was their willingness to sacrifice for each other that would determine whether they could defeat the coming darkness. But what kind of sacrifice? Lucas asked, his voice tight with fear. Eldrin didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped forward, his ancient eyes locking with theirs. You must give of your hearts, your spirits, your very souls. Only then will the spear be able to unlock its full potential. Only then will you be able to stand against the coming storm. Selena's voice was steady but filled with emotion. And what if we can't do it? What if we fail? Eldrin's gaze softened, and for the first time, there was a hint of something almost human in his ancient eyes. The darkness will consume everything if you fail. The choice is yours. The prophecy is not set in stone, but your fates are intertwined. Trust each other, trust the spear, and trust yourselves. The air grew heavy with the weight of Eldrin's words, and Lucas could feel the truth of them settle deep within his chest. The battle they had fought today had been hard, but it was nothing compared to what lay ahead. The coming darkness was real, and it would not be stopped by weapons alone. They would have to become something greater than they were. Together. As Eldrin disappeared back into the shadows, Selena's gaze turned to Lucas. For the first time, she didn't look at him like a warrior or a leader. She looked at him like something else, something more personal, more intimate. Lucas, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what this will look like. I don't know what it means for us, but I'll be with you, whatever it takes. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. There was no turning back now. They had been brought together for a purpose, and whether they were ready or not, they would face it, together. Lucas met her gaze, his heart thudding in his chest. I won't let you face it alone, Selena. I don't know what I'm capable of, but I'll do whatever it takes. A small, almost imperceptible smile flickered across Selena's face. "That's all I ask." And with that, the bond between them deepened. It was no longer just about the prophecy. It was about something more, something that would shape the course of their futures and the fate of two worlds. The coming darkness was still out there, waiting, but Lucas knew as he looked into Selena's eyes that they could face it, together. The temple stood in silence, its ancient stones bearing witness to the events that had unfolded within its sacred walls. The echoes of battle had faded, but the tension still hung thick in the air. The path ahead was uncertain, and Lucas could feel it, the weight of what was to come pressing down on him. Selena stood beside him, her golden eyes never leaving the horizon. Her armor was marked by the battle, but her spirit, like the spear itself, had grown stronger. They had fought side by side, and for a moment it felt like they were no longer just two individuals caught in the tide of fate. They were a team, partners. "We've done all we can for now," Selena said, her voice steady but filled with a quiet, unspoken weight. "But the darkness is still out there, and I can feel it, closer than ever." Lucas turned toward her, his expression serious. "And we'll be ready. We've come this far together. Whatever happens next, we face it together." He gripped the spear, feeling its power resonate through him, connecting him to everything they had fought for. The energy of the spear pulsed with a steady rhythm, as if echoing his resolve. "Not yet," Selena said, her voice suddenly low. "There is something we don't understand, and something hidden within the spear's power. We only unlocked a fraction of its true potential. The rest, it's waiting for us to discover it." Lucas furrowed his brow. "What do you mean?" Selena's eyes flickered with uncertainty. "I've seen glimpses. The future is not set in stone. The prophecy, it was never just about us. It's about the worlds we come from, the worlds we're trying to save. There's a force that binds them all, and the key to stopping the darkness lies somewhere in the forgotten past." "What do we do now?" Lucas asked, his voice filled with a sense of urgency. The weight of their mission was becoming more clear by the second. "We must seek the truth," Selena replied, stepping forward, her resolve firm. "There are places, hidden, ancient places, that even the Virelian people have forgotten. We must find them before the darkness does." Lucas nodded. He had already sacrificed so much, and now, it seemed, the journey was only beginning. But there was something inside him, a fire, a certainty, that kept him going. Selena's hand brushed against his, a silent promise between them. The connection they had forged was more than just the bond of prophecy. It was the spark of something greater. They would find what was hidden, no matter the cost. Just as they were about to turn toward the unknown, a sudden, low hum filled the air. The ground trembled once more, but this time, it wasn't just the aftershock of their battle. It was something else, something ancient, something powerful. Selena's hand shot out, gripping Lucas's wrist tightly. "It's here," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the growing hum. "The darkness has arrived, and it's not what we expected." From the depths of the temple, a beam of light pierced the stone ceiling, illuminating the sky above. It was unlike any energy Lucas had ever felt, sharp, cold, and unfathomably vast. The ground began to crack as the beam intensified, the air around them warping as if reality itself was beginning to unravel. "Do you feel that?" Lucas asked, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and awe. This isn't just an enemy, is it?" "No," Selena said, her expression hardening with determination. "It's a force that has been building for eons, waiting for this moment. The darkness is not a creature or an army. It is the unraveling of the very fabric of existence." The beam of light pulsed again, and suddenly, everything went still. The world seemed to pause, holding its breath. In the distance, a shape began to form within the light, a shadow that stretched and swirled like smoke, but with a presence so vast, so ancient, that it seemed to consume the very sky. Selena stepped forward, her hand on the hilt of her weapon. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "And we must face it together. We'll find the truth, we'll defeat the darkness. But first," she turned toward Lucas, her eyes meeting his with unspoken understanding. "We must unlock the final power of the spear." Lucas nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. "Then let's do it, together." As the shadow grew larger, the air thick with the crackling energy of the unknown, The two of them stood side by side and prepared to face whatever came next. The world had shifted, and the true test of their bond was only just beginning. But as the light from the beam flared brightly, illuminating everything around them, Lucas couldn't help but wonder, was this their final stand, or the beginning of a journey that would take them beyond the realms of space and time? The beam of light pierced the sky, and then everything went dark.